welcome to This is Politics. My name is Justice Malala, and I'm with Mondli Makhanya. Always, we have our producer here, Duncan, who wants us to talk about the island in the Caribbean, where we know a lot of political players went. He also wants us to talk about Jacob Zuma's visit in 2010 and 2011 to London, where he met with Jeffrey Epstein. But Mondli Makhanya and I want to talk about weightier things, far more meaningful things. And perhaps if you stay with us until right to the end of the show, we might touch on the Epstein saga and what it means for the fact that Jacob Zuma has a relationship. Mondli, he's got form in this thing. Huh? You've just pointed out to me that we nearly bought a Russian nuclear kit back in 2014-15.
Although we don't know whether the two were linked, but we know that there was a Russian lass that was organized for him by the pedophile. We don't know much about her at this point, but we know he was in the game.
And we know that the next day, the Lloyd character who organized the dinner and Jeffrey Epstein sent each other emails saying she was extraordinary.
And what we can only surmise from that is that they obviously had feedback from the person for whom this Russian death had been organized.
We need to point out that Jimmy Manyi, the spokesperson for the Jacob Zuma Foundation, says that nothing untoward happened and it's all above board. Jacob Zuma was doing it for the nation. Thank
you, Jacob Zuma.
We'll talk about that in a little while. Before we start, please don't forget to visit us on www.youtube.com/@thisispoliticssa. Follow us on X or Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And please click on that little bell on your screen to subscribe to our channel. Some good news, Duncan. Thank you so much to everyone who is watching, everyone who has subscribed to our channel. Big day today. We've got 1,000 subscribers, and I'm sure all of you will be telling your friends, your family, your children, your parents about this fantastic channel of ours. And we'll get to 2,000 and maybe 3,000 very soon. So thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. We appreciate it, and we hope we'll have many more interactions with you in the future. Today, we talk about the EFF, the Madlanga Commission, President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to the interim report of the Madlanga Commission, and what happens next. Mondli, where do you want to start, and what are your views?
Look, I mean, like I've pointed out in the past that, when President Ramaphosa appointed this commission, many people said, it's a cop-out. He's scared to make decisions again, and he's outsourcing decision-making, etc., etc.
Yes.
And people pointed to the fact that a lot of the recommendations of the Zondo Commission have still not been carried out, whether it's prosecutions or whether it's just fixing systems. A lot of it is still lying there, kind of like shelf 17.
But you wouldn't blame me. I mean, I'm one of those, I have to say. And I think to some extent you hold the same view.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the July 2021 riots and how there was this big investigation. There was the Africa report. All these PhDs sat around, looked at the intelligence services, what were the failures. And one of the things I find extraordinary is that you have how many? 254 people dead. You have 1,000 injured.
There's 350.
354. 354 South Africans died in those riots. We had a commission, an investigation, and quite
damage upwards of 50 billion.
Huge.
And then in terms of the economic fallout, incalculable.
The other day there was a sell-off of a factory in Roslyn, and I kept on thinking, isn't this a factory of the same company that got its factory wiped out in KwaZulu-Natal? And I kept on thinking, was there a relationship between these two and what's happening now? Is this a company and an employer who says, I'm not sure that I want to be in a country where something like that can happen? And today, Mondli, I still don't know who the masterminds of those riots were. I know that Jacob Zuma's daughter is being prosecuted for tweeting and allegedly inciting some of it. But
the thing about that is that when the president addressed the nation at the height of those riots, and he said, "This is an attempted insurrection." I mean, that is a very serious thing.
Insurrection means it's an attempted coup d'etat.
Yeah, and
it's a big word.
And there has to be kind of like, as the word you used, masterminds, and masterminds have to be people who are, heavyweight types. Yeah. So, but so far we've had Duduzile for tweeting, this young man.
Oh yes, the singing Ngizwe or something.
Well, there's Ngizwe, who's like the Maskandi artist and etc., cultural activist, he calls himself, whatever he calls himself. He was charged, and then this young man who used to be in the student, the Fees Must Fall, Bonginkosi.
Kanyile, yes.
Kanyile. Now, you cannot tell me that an insurrection, that those three people were at the heart of an insurrection. I mean, for something like that to have happened, and I do actually get the president's point. I mean, like that it was an attempted insurrection. There's no question about that. Yeah. And who was behind the coordination of that? Who was the third force? I mean, like to use parlance from our recent past. Because there had to have been a planning. The thing just exploded. I mean, like at some point, it obviously it develops a life of its own, because mobs go out there. But there was definitely coordination, and as you point out, there was this panel of learned people who sat and like analyzed the results and made recommendations. And also, there was also an investigation by the Human Rights Commission. Yeah, also kind of like, big recommendations that came out of that. And where are we today with all of that? There's Zondo, there's that, there was the Farlam Commission around Marikana.
Yes.
So you can't fault people for being skeptical. But I think what's happened differently here, I think that the shock of that July 6th press conference by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, basically, it was it rattled South Africans to the core. And because our safety is our safety. And to know that the criminal justice system is potentially in the hands of criminals, as was alleged, that I think would have jolted Ramaphosa not to be lackadaisical about this one. So at the 3-month point, the commission gave him the interim report and he acted on it. And I think all kudos to him for that. And I think that...
Pardon me if I say no. He's ordered that Fanny Masemola, the National Police Commissioner, set up a unit that will go after some of the officers in there. Procedurally, I think that's correct because you don't want a politician, in this case, President Ramaphosa, saying, I will do the investigation myself. The system, the structures of the state have to be seen to work. He has power over one thing, though, and that's political appointments. And so the interim report has already showed us with Senzo Mchunu, the suspended police minister, arrived at the commission and at the ad hoc committee in parliament, and gave a. We still don't know what drove this man to sit for 3 days in Mgazankamba, in his rural village in KwaZulu-Natal, and decide on the 31st of December 2024 that I've made my decision. Let me get on the phone. And in fact, not get on the phone. He composed an email. Mondli, I don't know what you were doing on the 31st of December 2024, but my friend, even if
I think I was at a monastery praying thanking God for 2024 and praying for a good 2025. I think that, yeah.
Now let's take a guy like me. I'm Billy no mates. I don't have friends. But even I was not composing a formal letter saying disband the PKTT. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense why the Minister of Police disbanded on zero grounds that unit. And so let me just finish this point. On that basis, Cyril Ramaphosa has a chance to say, halfway through, I've heard a lot, and it is enough for me to say, if Cyril Ramaphosa can fire a guy from the DA, what's his name, Andrew Whitfield, for getting on a plane and going to America without asking for permission, he has not fired someone who is responsible for the police and who disbanded a unit that was going after an ANC. This is Kat Matlala, an ANC troublemaker, connected, possible crime lord of some sort. I think at the basic level of I have some power, and that power is to appoint and disappoint political players and invite them to my cabinet or not disinvite them from my cabinet. That's what he should have done. He should have fired Senzo Mchunu. In fact, he should have fired him a long time ago.
Okay, Justice Malala, you've been listening to Senzo Mchunu too much. It's Anna Point.
I must say, he's got stories, so I do listen a bit.
The unfortunate thing is that the interim report, none of us has had sight of the interim report. The president got the report, read it, and his people read it. And obviously he got advice from his people that we can act on immediately. So we don't know what it says about Senzo Mchunu. And I'm sure that by the time the final report comes, there is no way Senzo Mchunu will go back there. He's heavily implicated. But I think he's playing a safe political game insofar as that political side of it is concerned. But I do think that for the people that the commission said there are possible criminal investigations and possible prosecutions here, the fact that he did not wait until the end of the commission to say, let's let it go and then we'll go for them then. I think one might say he was driven by optics, being seen to be doing something. But I think it's important that South Africa sees that actually this thing is so serious. If you look at that list of people who have been recommended for possible criminal charges, the task team, obviously, that the minister and the National Commission are going to put together will do the homework. You have somebody who basically people who were at the core of the leadership of the police force, people who interacted with, who were supposed to bring down organized crime, but instead they were chilling with organized crime. So I think that there was an urgency there, and I'm a bit more generous than you are. So I am going to commend President Ramaphosa for actually having taken action. And some might say, kind of like, why praise a fish for swimming? But at least this fish doesn't always swim. This time around, the fish swam.
Yeah.
So let's give credit there.
No, and I don't wholly disagree with you. I just feel that he could have gone a bit further. But I want to say, in support of your point, I think our listeners, our viewers, our friends out there thinking about these things, I want people to think about what I've been thinking a lot about, and that's a man called, I can't remember his official designation, but he's the head of the Hawks unit in KwaZulu-Natal. His name is Lesetja Senona. Lesetja Senona is the kind of person in this society that we should absolutely find disgusting, and he should be in jail. I want to take people back to 2024. There was a Hawks investigator who found that soldiers, members of a crack unit in the SANDF, had shot and killed a person. He investigated and was about to arrest these people. Someone in the Hawks told those soldiers about what he was about to do. They called him on his phone. They said, come to a meeting. He drove to Hammanskraal. On his way there, they shot and killed him. Senona, this head of the Hawks in KwaZulu-Natal, Lesetja Senona, did exactly the same thing. He took a whole folder with the names of his colleagues, of his underlings,
exactly,
with their phone numbers, with their ID numbers, everything you needed, their addresses, everything you needed to identify them, and gave it to Kat Malala and said, these are the people who are investigating you. What did he think that a crime lord was going to do with these addresses and names? He think, they're going to just sit there and, Mondli Makhanya's name is there.
However, but like,
not...
Cut him some slack. He says he didn't know that Malala was a criminal. He was just his brother. I think he was one of 5 people in South Africa who were ignorant of this fact. But anyway, the head of the Hawks in KZN tells us he had no idea.
The head of the Hawks in KZN. I mean, who do we have? This is the head of the Hawks. You know that the Hawks are South Africa's elite crime-fighting unit. They are... I mean, you know, when I was a kid, you know, we'd watch these movies and you'd like, you know, these are guys. They are the smart guys. They're the guys.
That's supposed to be the FBI.
They're the FBI. Yeah. They're, you know, and he didn't know that he was dealing with a criminal. Even as this guy was with his son, was buying his son an apartment. It's incredible. So when I think of Senona, there's a lot of bad stuff that's come out of the Madlanga Commission. But I think Senona is such a skunk. He is so smelly. It is disgusting that we have people like this claiming to be in the police service. And quite frankly, 10 out of 10 for Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for exposing people like these. 10 out of 10 for whoever is in charge of this investigation, because the first thing they did is to kick him out of that office. He should not even have gone into the building. That man is a disgrace to the SAPS. He's a disgrace to South Africa. He's a disgrace to all of us who live on this continent and in this country. He should be. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I think, I mean, like, in the months that this thing has been running, the commission has been running, and there's been like, some of the testimony has been kind of like earth-shattering, and like kind of like your skin, it makes your skin crawl. But for me, the Senona one was the one that I found the most nauseating. Because precisely as you say, kind of like in the police hierarchy, not just in KZN, at a national level, like the fact that he's the head of the Hawks in KZN puts him right up there at the national level. He's got
in the
access.
top 10
Yeah.
of the leadership of the elite unit. I mean,
And then this and then the smugness with which he behaved at the commission, kind of like being trying to be smart and telling the commissioners that he doesn't know anything about the Big Five. All he knows is that the Big Five is found in the Kruger National Park. I mean, that was like, it showed that clearly he wasn't taking the process seriously, or he thought kind of like somehow he had some kind of immunity. But fortunately, while he was on the stand, he got the news that he was going to be one of the people who were going to be pursued. And I think let's hope that it results in exactly what you have just said, that he gets to spend the rest of his day at Sun City or even at CMAX.
Yeah. Mondli, the EFF has been a major chunk of our political life the past 12 years. It came out of the ANC, Julius Malema, Floyd Shivambo, a few others expelled out of the ANC during Jacob Zuma's days, and they formed the EFF. Many of us thought they'd be a flash in the pan, but they're still going strong. What do you make of their plenum that they've had this week, and what do you think? You know, they've had quite a few setbacks. They lost Busisiwe Mkhwebane. They lost Floyd Shivambo, a founder member, a key member of the team. They lost Jimmy Manyi. They lost
Dalimpofu.
Some might say no loss there, but yeah. And so they've gone through a lot. When I think about the EFF, I think about the fact that, you know, this is a party that went from 0 to number 3 in the South African political landscape. And they held on to that number 3 spot for 2 elections. And then along came the MK party, and now they're back to, they're down to number 4. And you know, with all that's going on, we haven't on this show since we started spoken about the EFF. Are they relevant? I'd like to get my head around this. I don't.
No, look, I mean, like, they're still a very significant force. I mean, if it wasn't for the formation of Jacob Zuma's party, they could have actually. There was a speculation that they could do a lot better. Not break. I mean, like, they would be in the early teens, but not challenge the DA into second spot. No, I don't think that was ever going to happen. But what they were doing before the 2024 election, because I mean, like, already they had a strong base in Gauteng, a strong base in Limpopo in particular. But they had to grow, and their vote-rich province is KZN. So they put a lot of effort into growing their KZN base, and it was growing. All evidence points to the fact that, like, they were, like, growing on the ground, and their 2024 outcome was going to be so much better, and they might even have turned out to be the second biggest party in the province, second or third, still there, kind of like that, but they definitely would have overtaken the IFP. And then Jacob Zuma made the announcement on December 16, 2023, that he was starting this party. And all that work came to naught because the people who were disgruntled with the ANC, because that's where the EFF was going to be getting their votes from. People who were disgruntled with the ANC decided, listen, this is firstly kind of like it's our homeboy, and there is the Zuma factor that people don't care. That is like one of the most corrupt people who have ever walked this planet. But like he's got that great appeal, and so there was that factor, and then there was the fact that to them, this party was where Zuma was very clever was that he aligned it very closely. Basically, he made it the alternative to the ANC. That if you're voting for my party, you are not necessarily leaving your party. You're not leaving home. This is that's the ANC of Ramaphosa. Yeah. And this is the real ANC. And so people, almost 15%. Like of the national vote, but like in KZN, it's half the, yeah,
almost 50.
Yeah, in the province, and it totally undercut the EFF. So I think that they actually 2024 was a very demoralizing hit for them. Yeah, and because they basically kind of like battling to get out of the to get into the double digits and sustain the kind of like the above 10%. And now there's an election this year, and I think they've wasted the time between May 2024 and now, basically kind of like with internal quibbling and so on, and people defecting. And
what did that hurt them? Particularly the Mkhwebanes of this world and the Jimmy Manyis, I'm not convinced.
No. I think the departure of Floyd Shivambu was significant. The departure of Mbuyiseni Ndlozi was definitely significant. Those were major figures.
Yes.
In the political party.
Yeah.
And
but why was that necessary? It seemed quite petty, some of it. The stuff about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi by Julius Malema, for example, was just. It was, why are you so rattled by a comrade of yours?
No, the thing is, the way Julius Malema runs that party, he runs it as his party. Yeah, this is my EFF, and you do things my way. Like you've seen at the press conferences that he conducts, where it's like 2-3 hours. He's the only person holding fort, and his lieutenants are just giggling along. And those are kind of like very, very smart adults, leaders in their own right. And they have been, they reduced them to that. It wasn't a leadership collective.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that should have kind of like, it should have shocked him. There should have been a shock into the system of the EFF after 2024 that, like, look, let's build a party that is not just centered around one person. Obviously, the personality matters. It always matters in politics. But I think they only now at the beginning of 2026 starting to think, damn, in about 8-10 months' time, we're going to be going to elections and we need to have a machinery on the ground that's going to deliver us a decent result.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in, if something says there in big letters, the law in South Africa says don't shoot off a gun in public, and you shoot off a gun in public and the cops come and get you. You shouldn't complain afterwards that, they're targeting me. The law was very clear, and so I find it quite interesting that the courts that Julius Malema himself uses a lot to take the ANC to court and to do this and so forth have found that he fired off a gun in public.
It was his party's birthday. It was his birthday. How? Just like
so there's been a lot of talk.
Wouldn't you want to fire off an?
He's been persecuted. Persecuted. He's not been persecuted. He took a gun and fired it into the air, endangering his own supporters and other people. Right. So now. He might have to spend a bit of time getting fed by the taxpayer. will that have an impact? Will that make him a martyr? And when he comes out, it will be, yes, they tried to destroy me, but no. Or will it be, that's the end of the EFF while the cat is away?
I think that's his calculation, that whichever way he will, that's why he's playing this martyr thing, that should he go to jail, whoever is the caretaker will know that the godfather is still there in prison, and when he comes out saying Ramaphosa and his controllers in white monopoly capital, they were afraid of this militant black, unapologetically black and unapologetically Marxist-Leninist party. They put me away. Now let's forge forward with the revolution. And I think that's what he's calculating. But obviously he thinks that he's hoping that, as anybody would, that at the very best he will get a suspended sentence, which will enable him to continue with his running his party. But I don't think that, and what he's likely to do is, he's going to drag it out.
Yes.
Yeah. There's going to be appeals and appeals and appeals until, it could be another 2-3 years before this matter is concluded.
But the law is the law. Can I just say, if you take a gun and start shooting into the air,
because you are so boisterous and happy,
with thousands of people in a stadium, I don't think it computes. You're not a victim. You're not a victim. You're a leader of a political party, and you're shooting off stuff.
But Julius Malema, he's an excitable guy, and he actually believes that he's the latter day Peter Mokaba, and suppose shooting a gun in public would somehow enhance his militancy credentials, etc., etc. But look, he managed to mobilize several thousand people onto the streets of East London, making them believe that, he's
a victim.
There's a victim, their Messiah is being crucified by the bad forces.
Yeah. And is this going to work? Is he going to see a bump maybe in these local elections and the 2029 nationals?
I don't know how you see it, but I think, Mina, the big beneficiary of the winner, not winner overall, but the people who will score the best improvement in these elections, it's the most chaotic, disorganized party in this country. And that is Jacob Zuma's party. Yeah. Because it is personality, but they are now reaping the harvest that basically everything that the ANC they are reaping the benefits of the ANC's failures. And so I think they'll do very well in KZN. They might do well in Gauteng, they might do well elsewhere, but definitely in Mpumalanga. But definitely I think that's where you'll see the most gains. I see the EFF basically remaining pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking and I've been looking at some of these numbers. If you look at KZN, there is no MK party. There is a collapsed ANC that's basically gone into MK party. And so you have the personality of Jacob Zuma, the Ubaba, the Mshiniwami. It's basically since 2009. Give it to the guy. In 2009, he just, I don't know if this is the right words, the right expression to use, but he arrived in KZN and said, don't worry about Mangosuthu Buthelezi. I can do everything he does. I can speak to the king. I can shout at the king even if I want. He might claim to be Umtwanaga Pindangende, but I'm Zulu too. He played the Zulu card. He played the traditional card. He played them all.
He played the working class card.
Yeah.
The peasant card.
Boom. So 2009 was interesting for me because COPE came along, and COPE got 1.3 million votes. 1.3 million votes. But the ANC didn't suffer a dent because all of KZN, that was IFP, went
Moved
in.
over, yeah.
Yes. And then he carried on with that, and that sustained the ANC in 2014. So you're right, he's become and remains a powerful figure in that province. And I think we need to prepare for a situation where the MK party is either the winner in many of those local governments, or is the decider of who comes into a coalition, and that will be.
I think that's what will happen. I think it will be the leader of of whatever coalitions happen in Durban and Msunduzi and whatever. Yeah, those two metros in particular. I think that's going to be the party, and then in the other smaller but not so insignificant towns, they'll sweep some of them. Well, obviously the IFP is also believing that it's kind of like that. There's that they do have a revival, kind of like still playing on the memory of their late leader.
They put him on their posters instead
and it's
of
still going to be the case. I think. Do it for Shank.
Yes, that's the EFF. That is. So we should we just finish off on. I'm doing this under pressure from my right here, where Duncan wants us to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not. I haven't.
But do. Let's hear. Let's hear what you think of the island, Mr. Vele.
So it was a bright and starry night when Jacob Zuma was invited to Buckingham Palace by the Queen of England in 2010, right?
Correct.
He had 2 full days of official engagements. On the day that he was supposed to fly out, he was invited to dinner by a fellow called something Lloyd, who said, I'm a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey said, we should have a dinner for you, and so forth. And there will be a young lady of Russian origin also present. And so instead of President Zuma flying home that evening with his lady, he went to dinner with this party. The next day, you read the story more closely than I did, Mr. Makhanya. But the next day, there were emails exchanged saying, oh, what a fantastic evening. Jacob Zuma is better than we thought he would be. And what a great guest that Russian lady was. She performed fantastically well. I need to point out once again that Jimmy Manyi, the spokesperson of the J.G. Zuma Foundation, says nothing untoward happened and Mr. Zuma was engaged in his official duties, through which he meets a lot of people. Mondli, do you want to weigh in on this matter? I like what you said. I like that. I don't, you know what I like about your mind, Mondli, is that you can make these beautiful connections. When I read that, not once did I think about nuclear deals. I thought, Jacob Zuma met with this slimy Jeffrey Epstein characters in London, and then, whatever happened. But then you said to me, and a few years later, we were trying to buy and to get nuclear power stations built here. And then you went on to remind me that at the moment, Jacob Zuma, we know, wrote 2 letters to the Ministry of Defense in Russia saying, please, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to send 17 young kids to you to go and fight the Ukrainians.
Please, can we have them back?
So there's a history here of
Yeah.
Russian intermingling.
Yeah,
if
you
we
know
can.
what? The thing is, throughout, we can only surmise and speculate about where that relationship began. But what we do know is that throughout his presidency, Jacob Zuma was at the beck and call, of the Russians. They just flicked they clicked like this, their fingers, and he was there. And as we have been discussing, that there was this nuclear deal whereby the Russians were going to set up a nuclear plant that we could not afford, that could have bankrupted this country, but he went against all advice, against all odds, even fired his right-hand people, his ministers, on the basis that we want this thing to happen. And there were trips to Russia where we were told that he's gone there for medical purposes.
Yes, there were many
which
of
is
those.
like such a, like a lot of presidents from some other African countries go and get treatment abroad. And it's become accepted that that's what's going to happen. In South Africa, we have fabulous, world-class medical facilities in the private sector.
People come here for medical attention.
People from the Western world come here for medical attention.
Yes.
Yeah. So this Russian relationship, we don't know whether it began with this particularly fantastic young lady, as was pointed out. But what we do know is that Jacob Zuma did, in a way, between the Russians and the Guptas, not sure who had greater power over him during that period. But just on the Epstein matter, it's been quite a. Obviously, each time there's a tranche that's released, it grabs the public imagination, and this one more than the previous ones, because it was such a huge dump, 3 million items. And we treat it as the reading and news consuming public, treat it as a titillating thing. Yeah, because there are all these big names, and there's sex, and there's like dirty, filthy old men and household names that we know, kind of like who went to this island, and often not given enough emphasis. I won't say it's overlooked. Not given enough emphasis was that there were rapes.
Yeah.
This was child trafficking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pedophilia.
It was pedophilia, and what those men did there for their own pleasure, what Epstein in particular did for his own pleasure and shared with his mates. That was the lowest of the low.
Yeah.
And so I think that the world, in the salaciousness of the whole thing, we forget that actually kind of like
that young woman, is it Virginia Giuffre, died. And I think as all these things come out, and I hope there isn't suppression of it, one must remember that people's lives, young women's lives, were destroyed by this. Not one woman, there are tens and tens of victims, possibly hundreds. And that's because money played a role in it. The other thing for me is that the politics of the United States, and this story is at the center of U.S. politics now, and whether we are seeing even geopolitical issues determined by whether can I bomb Iran so that we stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein and all the things that are in all these things. There was a time when this was something that people on the internet talk about on Reddit and
but conspiracy theories
and so forth. But actually, right now,
It is a massive, massive thing that could have, as you say, implications for the world.
For the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. And I think it's a very good point to make and to emphasize that this is serious, and this is just the implications are absolutely horrendous and huge. But of course, we'll see and we'll hear what Jacob Zuma has to say on some of these things that have been said and written about him. Jimmy Manyi is someone that I think we should all listen to as the official spokesperson of the JG Zuma Foundation. I noticed that Nhlamulo Ndlela of the MK party said, no, I'm not going to talk about this. You need to talk to the JG Zuma Foundation. And that's how Jimmy Manyi gave the statement. But yeah, I think that's all we have for today. Once again, congratulations everyone for helping us here get to 1,000 subscribers. Continue to spread the word. We'd love to hear from you. We love your comments. Some of them are a bit sharp, but hey, we love them nonetheless. Keep them coming. As I've said before, we're going to start reaching out, trying to have some events, meeting you, and always having a good chat about the country that we love so much. It's me and Mondli Makhanya and Duncan. If you have views, post them, and we'll see you next week.